Hello and good morning. Today I'm going to be talking about two fictional characters, but nevertheless are truly interesting, but not in the way that I think many people would expect. So, the fictional characters that I'm going to be talking about today for my English practice, if you will, are Squall Leonhart. Right, we have Squall Leonhart from FF8, and then Rinoa Heartilly from FF8. Right, so we have Rinoa Heartilly and Squall Leonhart from FF8. Okay. So, disclaimer. If you are if you are an avid fan of Final Fantasy VIII, especially Squall Leonhart and Rinoa Heartilly, then either you're going to really like this video because maybe you're gonna see these two characters from a different perspective, or maybe you're gonna hate it. Maybe you're gonna hate everything that I'm gonna say because, again, the perspective is just different. Okay, and then another disclaimer. I am not saying in any manner possible that romantic relationships suck. That's not what I'm saying. Nor am I saying that, romantic relationships are senseless or romantic relationships are not worth your time and effort, or that romantic relationships don't lead to happiness or don't bring happiness. I'm not saying that those things are absolutely true, nor am I saying that romantic relationships are, something that you should avoid, especially if you are in a romantic relationship. Okay, so if you are in a romantic relationship and you're genuinely happy about it, then I'm happy for you. I'm genuinely happy for you. But if you're someone who's let's say single and you're happy as well, you're genuinely happy, then I'm also happy for you. I'm happy for everyone who's happy. Okay? So, no offense intended. I'm not moralizing. I'm just describing things and offering my perspective. And of course, just practicing my English. So, let's get started. Alright, so let me talk about what I think about these two first. I think that they make a good package, an advertisement for RPG games. So for example, way back in the late 90s or maybe early 2000s, whenever I saw discs being sold in game stores, I simply would always see their faces or their photographs. Okay, so they make a good package for RPG games, storytelling or narratives. They really make good poster icons, if you will. Squall Leonhart makes a good poster boy for Final Fantasy VIII, and Rinoa Heartilly makes a good poster girl for FF8. And so when you combine them together, it's a perfect mix, at least in my opinion. Okay? So they make a good poster couple, if you will, if that makes sense. Okay? That's what I think. Now, let me tell you about what I don't think. Now, you might get offended, and I'm sorry. I'm not saying that my views are necessarily better than yours. These two characters, in my opinion, don't really make a good couple. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. But I really don't think that they make a good couple. I'm not saying that Rinoa is a bad, romantic partner for Squall, nor am I saying that Squall Leonhart is a bad romantic partner for Rinoa. No. In fact, they make what you might call a good matchup, romantically speaking, of course, because they don't belong to the world of fighting games. But these two characters here, I don't think they really make a good couple, because they are extremely emotionally fragile. Extremely, really. Squall Leonhart always keeps his distance because he's afraid of getting hurt so much. He's afraid of being abandoned. You know the story. And this one is just to me, unexplainably, kind of aggressive. She asks and even persuades Squall to dance with her the first time they meet. And she even coaches Squall, who is very reluctant to dance in the way that she wants. It's weird. It really is weird. Now, of course, you could argue, well, that makes them a good couple. You could say, don't you think that it's like yin and yang, or yang and yin, or whatever the case may be? Yeah, I wouldn't argue against that. But, they are not just weird for those reasons. Okay? What's even more weird, or weirder, from my point of view, is that first of all, they don't represent how messy romantic relationships can be. They do to a certain degree, but not close enough. Not really close enough. These characters help make a good story for a RPG, but again, they don't just represent how messy human relationships are, romantic relationships in particular. Because because you see, I do think that in a way the relationship between Squall and Rinoa is messy to a certain degree. It's messy to a certain degree. Okay, it has problems of its own. But in general, things are clear for them. Things are clear for them. How? you know, you could argue and say that, like it's a story, but again, they, for them, everything is crystal clear, especially in the middle and in the end of the story. Squall knows he loves Rinoa. Rinoa knows she loves Squall. Okay, and they just understand each other like a match made in heaven. Right? They understand what they mean by love, or even by how they move. It's like what you might call a perfect sync. Okay, I'm not saying that that's completely impossible in real life, but again, what I'm saying is they don't represent how messy human relationships are. Because you see, in reality, while while couples and potential couples say that they love one another, they say the word "I love you" to each other. But what happens is that the term love in most cases is smuggled in. By that I mean, nobody, almost nobody really tries to define what love means first for each of them. Okay? We all know that love is a four-letter word, Love. Okay, we get it. And we also know that, it makes you feel things, whatever those feelings are. Right? But then, that's all there is to it. Like, they don't define what love is first, what they mean by love. And so, they, on the one hand, on the surface, people seem to understand what they mean by love when they say the words "I love you" to their romantic partner or potential romantic partner. And because the term love is smuggled in, they don't define it. In the long run, people get disappointed. Because, again, they don't really define what love means for them. So, for example, let's say, for example, a hypothetical situation. So, for example, if Squall says, for example, to Rinoa, "Hey, I love you," okay? And then Rinoa says, in return, "I love you too, Squall." So, yeah. They seem to understand each other, right? But then, it could be the case that what Squall's conception of love is different. For example, perhaps Squall is not even interested in marriage. He happens to love Rinoa genuinely. But it doesn't mean he's interested in getting married at all. But then, Rinoa, on the other hand, it could be the case that she has, her conception of love in her relationship to Squall is about getting married, having kids, right? So these are two different things. It's the same word, love, but the conceptions are different. Okay? So it's it's a problem, really. That's what happens in human relationships. Just because your romantic partner tells you that she loves you or he loves you doesn't mean that he or she is necessarily interested in getting married. Nor does it mean that they even plan to get married in the future, let alone marry you. All right? Because you see, one of the fundamental problems of what you might, of conceptions and use of terms is that, again, they're loaded and people take them for granted, even and assume that they understand one another when they use the same word, when in fact they mean different things. So, let's, if we going to really think about how messy human relationships are, and of course, relationships involve human communication, and communication implies, at least mostly, that words are used, terms are used, okay, and there are, of course, terms that are vague. For example, love. Okay, like if you ask like 100 people about, their conception of love, I mean, probably you'll get 100 conceptions. Okay. And then another thing about what you might call love, especially in romantic relationships, is that for example, let's have Squall and Rinoa again. So we know Squall is just a boy with like a very deep trauma. He is very needy. He tells himself every time whatever because he wants to deny that he is truly needy. Okay. And so he tries to deny it, that he is needy, but he is truly needy. He wants people, he wants to have attachments, but he's afraid of them because of the pain, the possibility of pain, of being abandoned, of being left alone. Right? So he is needy. But then Rinoa, on the other hand, is what you might call the constant, not really constant, but she isn't just approachable, she approaches people. Alright? So you could say that Squall needs Rinoa. But here is the fundamental question. If Squall didn't need Rinoa, would he still love Rinoa? Okay. So we could ask, is it the case that Squall loves Rinoa because he needs Rinoa? Or is it the case that he needs Rinoa because he loves Rinoa? Those are two different things. And that's something to really think about. Okay? And we could flip that argument. Okay? We could also, think that Squall is like the kind of man that Rinoa needs. Okay, in a way, Rinoa is also needy, but in a different manner. Okay, so we could also ask the same question: does Rinoa love Squall because she needs Squall, or does she need Squall because she loves Squall? Again, those are two different things. So that's something to think about, right? The use of terms, how messy human relationships are, especially romantic relationships, how we use the term love, how we communicate, and how fictional characters, so some of them, not many of them, but not all of them, maybe many of them, or maybe just some of them, but romantic stories that involve fictional characters like Squall and Rinoa don't really represent how messy romantic relationships are in what you might call our real world. Okay, so yeah, I've been rambling and basically just thinking and practicing my English. So thank you very much for listening.